Good morning, everyone. Deputy Director of the Department of Disaster Management, Evangeline Innis Springer. General Manager of Sol BVI, Liz Wyatt. Sol Group Engineering Manager, Julian Jackson. Specially invited guests, colleagues, GIS, good morning again. And welcome to this brief opening ceremony to signal the start of a very important workshop as part of the Petroleum Safety the Smart Way campaign. I consider this workshop to be significant, not only because it's a part of our campaign to raise awareness on the appropriate ways of handling petroleum products, but because of the level and nature of the information that will be shared here with you today, particularly on liquid petroleum gas LPG. It is not very often that we hear about LPG installation and handling in great detail, and many of us don't even think about it, although we use the product daily. This workshop promises to cover a wide range of topics as it relates to LPG handling, and I thank you all for seeing this as a valuable workshop worthy of your attendance. I would like to especially welcome the facilitator, Group Engineering Manager Julian Jackson, welcome again, who is from Barbados, but who understood the importance of the campaign and has agreed to be the facilitator for today's session. You will hear more about Mr. Jackson and the topics to be covered later on in this opening ceremony. But before we get to that stage, let me again call back the Deputy Director, Evangeline Innis Springer, to make some brief remarks on behalf of the Director of the Disaster Management Department.
Good morning, all. I acknowledge and adopt the protocol established by the chairperson for this morning's proceedings. As you are all aware, on March 1st, Sol Petroleum and the Department of Disaster Management launched a 3-month campaign to promote the best and safe handling of petroleum products, including LPG. This ongoing Petroleum Safety the Smart Way campaign represents a public-private partnership between the two of us, that's Sol and DDM, to bring about greater awareness about petroleum and LPG safety. We see this campaign as an important proactive approach to reducing the risk of injury when using petroleum products. The risks associated with the use of these products are often overlooked because of how frequently we use them. But the reality is that petroleum products are hazardous substances if used or handled incorrectly. And through this campaign, we have implemented a number of awareness activities utilizing various communication platforms to include, but not limited to, radio, television, newspaper, and social media. Our key messages have been centered on increasing the understanding of the do's and the don'ts when handling petroleum products through the dissemination of messages using the various communication tools available to us to promote safety at gas stations, safe storage of LPG, safe transportation of LPG, and now with this workshop today, we are targeting government building inspectors and other key stakeholders who work with and handle LPG. The workshop will provide critical information on the proper installation of bulk tanks and general safety for the correct handling of LPG, and we trust that the information shared with you today will be beneficial for you in all aspects of your life. We encourage you to transfer the knowledge gained from today's session by sharing information and giving advice to other members of staff and even persons that you interact in your personal life. After all, the more we know about LPG and other petroleum products, the safer we will be, and we will become more knowledgeable about how to detect improper practices and installation of LPG cylinders. Thank you, and I wish you an informative and interactive session. Thank you.
Right now, we're going to welcome the General Manager for Sol Petroleum BVI, Liz Wyatt, to give some remarks, and following her, we'll have some brief remarks as well from Mr. Jackson.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the press. First of all, I really want to hand out some thank yous. One would be to His Honourable Minister Mark Vanderpoel, Minister of Communication Works, who's really put his whole strong belief in the safety of Virgin Islanders behind this campaign. In addition, Deputy Director INNISS Springer, as well as Director Charlene DeBro, who has put the resources available in order to actually make this campaign happen. And not least, but Miss VIONA Alexander, I cannot thank you enough for all your efforts and this person who's made this a reality. Now, petroleum safety should be everybody's concern. Okay, we as Virgin Islanders interact with it every day. But do we really understand the risks? We gas up at service stations. There are rules to follow. Do we know these rules? Many of us think, oh, well, it's an everyday activity, but we don't pay attention to these things. We almost all use cooking gas in our homes, but do we actually understand the dangers? So what this workshop and the entire campaign is actually accomplishing is to bring more awareness and education to Virgin Islanders. And as you go through your daily life and interact with other Virgin Islanders, please pass on some of the knowledge. Please let them know what you hear today and some of the information that you receive, because by spreading this word, that's the way we can all make ourselves safer. Okay? And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Julian Jackson, Seoul Caribbean's Group Engineering Manager, who is an expert on LPG, who has already done many training sessions throughout the Caribbean. So I wish you an informative day, and I will turn it over to you, Julian.
Hi, good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to this session. I must say that since we've started this campaign, there has been so much interest in LPG in particular, because there's something that is used so often by everyone that they keep recurring and asking for more training. I've recently did some training on the radio, for example, for St. Kitts. That was like 4 sessions every Monday and every month. And there's so many callers during that time that 30 minutes that we had allowed was way too short. People were calling in, and some of them were even very emotional about it, because as Liz said before, LPG is something that everybody uses. Now, what Sol has been doing in the last, say, year and a half is that we have been looking at our LPG installations all across the group. We have been auditing every single site. And our plan is to basically upgrade all of the facilities to the standard that we are supposed to uphold. But not only the facilities, as in the terminals, but also every customer, all the hotels and everything has to be upgraded. What we have found is that there's a gap in knowledge between the installation of the LPG system and what is happening on the inside of the house. This is something that, for example, all companies that sell petroleum products, especially the downstream companies like Sol, our responsibility or ultimate responsibility is to ensure that, for example, the cylinders and the containers and everything is built according to industry standards. But then, when we give this to the customer, and we pressure test it, and we say this is great, then it is the customer's responsibility for the inside installation. So things like like how the appliances have to be hooked up, the piping behind the appliances, even how the gas and air shutter is supposed to be calibrated. None of that is really done. So all of that happens on the inside of homes, people just hook up to the system and they said, well, everything is okay. So what we've been finding too is that many do not understand exactly what they're supposed to be receiving in terms of the flame on the appliances. They believe that, yes, LPG burns blue, but if you have a little blue and you have some yellow, no big deal. Well, let me tell you that if the system is set up correctly, this is the whole system now, from our installation from the tank all the way to the manifold of the appliance, the LPG is a very steady and blue flame, very steady and blue with just a little tip of yellow at the top. When you do not receive that kind of flame, something is wrong, right? So the reason why we're basically getting involved now in the inside is that we recognize this gap, and we recognize also that there's a hazard if you have a yellow flame burning in your house. It produces a toxic gas called carbon monoxide, and of course, the good thing about it, so to speak, is that the concentration of the carbon monoxide in most homes is lower than the concentration that would affect a human being. But many installations that we've seen, for example, those that where the kitchens do not have windows, and where the system inside the house is not set up right, there is so much yellow that it is suiting the appliances. So, you know, you can see like all the black on the pot. And people are saying things like, oh, I'm getting headaches when I'm in my kitchen. And as soon as we hear that, we know exactly what the problem is. So this campaign really is a knowledge and is a safety campaign to make sure that you fully understand the properties of the LPG, because when you understand the properties, you will understand a bit more of how it behaves. But also, what we are teaching, especially in this demonstration, is how to handle an emergency. You can know about properties of LPG, you can understand things like how it is to be installed and everything. But when an incident happens, sometimes all that happens is that people freak out and they run. It is actually not the best thing to run when it comes to LPG. In fact, it is probably, in many cases, in 70% of the times, there are many things that you can do to actually prevent the catastrophe from occurring, right? So I really hope, I want this session to be very, very interactive. I really hope that you have a very informative session as I begin.
Wow, I've already acquired some new knowledge there. Okay, so we've pretty much come to the end of the opening ceremony. Just allow me to give the vote of thanks. I would like to, on behalf of the Department of Disaster Management, express sincere thanks to Liz Wyatt and her team at SOL, to Julian Jackson, Group Engineering Manager, Director of the BVI Red Cross, Helen Frett, and staff for accommodating the workshop here. Specially invited guests, workshop participants, my colleagues, and of course, GIS. Thank you all for attending, and I wish you all an exciting workshop today. As Mr. Jackson said, please be interactive and let's have fun, so to speak, and learn at the same time. Thank you again.